We're back on Morning Line. Thanks for joining us. Our guest this morning, Davidson County Sheriff Darren Hall. You know, I deal with a lot of sheriffs around and a lot of departments, and whenever I walk into certain jails, I can sometimes just get the sense of morale or the feel of the people there, and it varies. Some are happy and well run. Others, frankly, I wonder how they operate day to day. Yours, you know, is one, and part of it, you have a lot of resources to do well, but people there are happy, like you said. The turnover rate, that's not saying everyone is. I'm sure you have some disgruntled folks, but you've been there for 14 years as chief, and as sheriff, and it's well run. And I was asking him during the break about whether or not you have gatherings or acknowledgments, or, you know, you can't meet with 1,000 staffers every week or something like that. What do you do to build the morale or to keep things going? You gave me a couple examples during the break.
Yeah, I mean, we do several things. We do an Employee and Officer of the Month traditional thing. It's all peer driven. They have to be nominated.
So they
from
get
the
nominated,
peers,
and then you look at why.
And then we recognize special accomplishment. I was mentioning the officer who saved a woman that was at lunch last week at a restaurant and performed the Heimlich maneuver. Another situation last week we're recognizing this week. We had 2 officers in our mobile unit that was out in I think in the north part of town, and they're basically affixed in a booking environment waiting on an arrestee to come from the police department, and while they're sitting there they hear gunshots while they're sitting there waiting, and so all of a sudden someone come running out of the woods or in the area and ran up, and sure enough been shot several times in the leg. And so there's no nurse or medical staff on scene. These are officers, and so over the next several hours they're there doing a different function, and literally in this case literally we're putting fingers in the bullet holes to help prevent the person from bleeding out. So a lot that goes on. The officers are going to be recognized again tomorrow that we're involved with that. Just this weekend I get emails all weekend. I mean, I know there was 3, maybe 4 attempted suicides that were prevented. Some were literally in the act of committing suicide and was stopped by officers. And I mean, it's the most thankless role in the government, I believe, and what they do every day, and the officers that are there doing things. And like I said, had one of those 3 suicides been successful, we're trying to prevent them from harming themselves when they want to harm themselves. It's a tough thing to do. I mean, you wait till you turn the corner and then they can attempt to do. So you have all these challenges, and again, you're out there doing a booking function, all of a sudden someone runs up, has been shot, you're having lunch and someone's choking, and those folks are doing, I think, an incredible job. And whether, unfortunately, if the success of the suicide, it could ruin a weekend's worth of news, because we're dealing with a lot for us. We're doing a lot of different things, and our staffs, struggle through a lot of that. And but I think ultimately, Nick, I mean, I take the most pride, I think, in our staff and how we try to recruit and train our people. That's important. But to me, it's retaining them is the most important thing we do. It costs a lot of money to get you and recruit you to come to work here, and a lot of agencies, I think, do it wrong. I think they focus externally on what's important, and I really think we try to focus internally and believe that if we can keep our staff, the morale of the staff and the agency, if not in a positive way, in a very professional way, it pays off in the external world. And I think a lot of agencies communicate externally and hope the community thinks they're doing a really good job. We spend most of our energy communicating internally. We have an intranet site that's only for our employees. Every job bid, every policy change, whether it's Twitter and Facebook, we're communicating to our staff. That's who we focus on.
You want to be as transparent as possible with media and stuff. If you guys screw up, usually you're up front, and and like any department this big, you're going to have problems.
It's going to happen.
You're going to have headaches. You're also going to have legitimate mistakes where you guys screw up. Sometimes it's not going to be fair, the publicity you get, and you know that. You've been through that before, but that's what we like in the media anyway. I just don't understand some of these sheriff's departments that just are not transparent for whatever, and they somehow think when something goes wrong, if they clam up, it's going to go away. It's quite the opposite. You clam up and you have someone like Phil Williams on your tail. He's not going away. Okay, but if you open up and you're up front, and he's always going to be fair, we do the story and you move on. I don't understand in the PR business why people don't recognize that. Let's take a quick call from Joseph. Hi, Joseph.
Hey, good morning, you guys.
Good morning. What can we do for you?
I had a real quick question if the sheriff could answer, if you could shed some kind of light on it. And I was just curious about the the Charles Bass, the Site 1 and Site 2, while they were shut down, if you could shed any kind of light on that at all.
That's interesting. Yeah,
Okay.
Charles Bass was a facility reception center here for the Department of Corrections. It wasn't the county.
Yeah, well, I thought it was state, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It is closed. And I can only, for Joseph, I can only speak to what I've read about it and so forth.
Is that where you guys sometimes would send inmates after they had been with you and they had been gone through the judicial system?
Right.
They go to Bass to be processed, to be placed at one of the prisons.
And then they would send them out probably a month or so later.
So where do they go now, by the way? I mean,
we actually take them to East and West Tennessee now because there's not a location. So they have centers in the East, which is really poor for us.
I was going to say, so you must have asked why.
Right.
What do you know?
They blamed it on cost. It is a tough place to operate. I've been out there. We've been looking.
Is that out there near Riverbend?
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And it's a pretty, to me, it's a staff-intensive facility to operate the way it's designed. It wasn't built very well for that purpose. But it is empty. It could be used, and quite frankly, I think that's a conversation the state needs to think about. I just don't know that it was, and I read articles that it was very expensive per diem, per day cost to house an inmate there. And so I think in an effort to save money and reduce costs, they closed it, I guess, 2 years ago maybe.
Okay, I didn't even realize that.
Yeah.
But what I really didn't realize is you then, or any I guess, for instance, Rutherford County, any of these local jails, when they're ready to send someone who's being held longer to the prison system, has to go to West or East Tennessee.
Right.
Processing center.
Right, and what we've done is kind of wait on our trips. We'd go out here every day if we needed to and drop someone off, but now we wait and try to go monthly for us. We have the resources to do that. Again, we have buses and vans. Some of these small counties can't afford to do that, and I don't know, I haven't talked to them about, are y'all waiting and sharing with other counties? I'm not sure what happens, but it's not, this is selfish, but it's not very good for the Middle Tennessee area because you have to go. But I'm sure the folks in East and Middle, East and West,
they don't have
may
to drive
think
as far. But by the way, just remind folks, the average length of stay, if someone is incarcerated in your jail, is what? Whether that leads to their release. Sometimes they're held till and released, right, for minor offenses, and then others they're held for a period of time and then transferred to the prison system. Correct?
Yeah, I always tell, let's get rid of the ones who bond out, because there's a lot that get out the first 7 or 8 hours that they make their bond, so they don't really spend the night overnight. So let's just get rid of that. Gotcha. It's about 90 days or so that a person would stay. Now, keep in mind all those folks, and then you get up into the 6-month window is probably the norm, somewhere between 90 days and 6 months. The person awaiting trial, just to get to trial, sometimes is 6 or 7 months, and those are felony cases, and then they would be, if convicted, moved on to the prison system. What people forget is we have a lot of folks doing misdemeanor sentences that are 30 days, 28 days, or so forth, and they're in jail doing time, but it's very low-level misdemeanor offenses. Sure. The other groups are felonies, but they're awaiting trial, and that may take 7 or 8, 10 months to get back to trial.
Right.
And that's kind of
unless if they haven't made bond for whatever reason, then they're staying with you that whole time.
Used to be a year, but it's down into the 6-month window for awaiting trial in those cases.
Do you ever have interaction with the magistrates? We just have a minute or two left, where you're getting crowded, and I guess it doesn't happen when you're too full, where they just keep posting bonds that are too high, and so people don't bond out. And I understand you don't want someone dangerous. Yeah, bond should be set based on, I guess, flight risk?
Yeah, bond is set for 2 reasons.
Okay, what are the 2 reasons?
It's to ensure you'll return to court. That's what bond is for, and to protect the community. What people think is that, if you're arrested today for any charge, really, we think it's to prevent you from getting out, and the reality is it's supposed to be to ensure your return to court. You're guaranteed that right. You're innocent, so you need to come back to court. If you have no reason to flee, right, and you lived here, your family's here, the crime that you've committed really isn't what we're supposed to focus on.
Right, because you're innocent until proven guilty.
Right, but we do.
You are so right. That's the vast majority of people think that. I don't know if you think about what we were just talking about there, but bond, whether you're accused of a horrible murder. Now, sometimes some crimes are no bond, I guess. That's pretty rare, though.
Yeah, there's one charge that can be aggravated murder, can go without a bond. Everything else is supposed to have a bond, and it's supposed to be based on will you come to court or not, and are you a risk to the community.
Now, the risk to your community, now how do they gauge that? Okay, sure you're at risk if you're charged with murder, but again, you're innocent. So how do they deem whether you're a risk to community?
Yeah, I mean, murder's 85% of the time a murder is a crime of passion. So if unfortunately, if you committed a murder with a crime of passion, the chances you're going to do that again aren't very high. You've probably eliminated your passion or the person in the situation. But we would have $1 million bond placed on you probably, which really isn't the right way it's supposed to work. Now I understand why, but it's not the way it's supposed to work.
Exactly right. The $1 million bond. So in so many words, they know this person's not going to be able to find a way to make that $1 million bond. Their lawyer will be in there arguing for lowering the bond, but a lot of times, sometimes they'll just, the bond on this crime, it's so horrendous, is $10 million, something crazy like that, which is the same as no bond.
Right. It's just a way to keep people in jail, and the reality of the reason you want out of jail, the logic is that the odds of you performing and having a better case prepared when you go to court if you're out of jail is far more
because you can meet and get with your lawyers and do all the prep and everything, which is exactly what's happening, for instance, with the Brandon Vandenberg and Corey Beatty. Both of them have bond. If they couldn't make it, they'd be behind bars, but they're out and certainly meeting with their lawyers. As that trial, by the way, is of course postponed till next year. Next spring. Sheriff, that's all our time. Thank you for coming on. As always, a pleasure. Interesting conversation. Appreciate the phone calls, and we'll see you again soon.
Look forward to it.
Thank you, my friend. We'll take a break. Be back with a programming note about tomorrow right after this. Stay with us.